This is how the rich use debt to build wealth. And no one is teaching you this. If you've always believed debt is something to avoid, this video is going to flip that belief upside down. This isn't theory. This is the real strategy used by millionaires to acquire assets, minimize taxes, and multiply cash flow, while most people are stuck working for money. In the next 10 parts, you'll learn why the rich don't work for money, how they turn debt into income, and more importantly, how you can do it too, even if you're starting from zero. Don't just watch the first few minutes and miss the mental breakthrough that happens near the end. Stick with it, take notes, and comment with the insight that hit you the hardest. And if you're serious about leveling up your financial mindset and escaping the 9-to-5 grind, hit subscribe to Mindset for Wealth now, so you never miss a real strategy again. How do the rich keep getting richer while everyone else is stuck chasing paychecks and praying for promotions? It all starts with a fundamental concept that almost no one teaches in school: the power of debt. Not the kind of debt that buries you in credit cards or student loans. I'm talking about the kind of debt that the wealthy use to generate income. Most people think debt is bad, something to avoid at all costs. They're taught to save, live below their means, and never borrow more than they can repay. But what if I told you the rich play by an entirely different set of rules? What if debt wasn't the enemy, but the tool? Most people grow up believing the formula is simple: work hard, get a job, save money, invest a little, and someday you retire. But that formula doesn't account for inflation, taxation, or time. By the time the average person starts investing, they're already behind. And worse, they're investing with their leftover income, what remains after taxes and living expenses. Meanwhile, the wealthy are using other people's money, mainly through smart debt, to acquire cash-flowing assets that pay them monthly. They don't rely on income from labor, they rely on leverage. The result? They scale faster, keep more of their income legally, and their wealth compounds at a pace most people can't fathom. If this sounds unfair, it's not. It's simply the knowledge gap. It's not taught in schools, and your employer certainly won't explain it. Why would they? The system runs best when the majority work for money, not with money. If you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or confused, it's not your fault. You were trained to follow a script that benefits the system, not you. So if you're ready to break free from that cycle, you need to understand the game the rich are playing, and it starts with using debt the smart way. This isn't theory. It's practical, applicable, and replicable. If you're willing to unlearn the lies and embrace the truth about financial power. The system isn't broken. It's designed that way. If you've ever wondered why you were never taught about taxes, credit, or cash flow in school, here's the truth. Education is meant to produce employees, not entrepreneurs. Think about it. From kindergarten to college, you're trained to be punctual, follow rules, obey authority, and memorize facts. None of those skills help you build wealth. They help you become a reliable worker. That's it. Ask yourself, who benefits when you don't understand money? Who profits when you spend 40 years working, saving, and handing over your income to taxes, banks, and financial advisors? Not you. The reality is harsh, but eye-opening. Most people are financially obedient, but strategically blind. They're told to stay out of debt. Yet banks make billions lending money. They're told to buy a house, but that house often becomes a liability, not an asset. They're told to save money, but inflation eats away the value every single year. It's like being given a map to the wrong destination and wondering why you're lost. And here's the kicker. The people giving you that map are the ones profiting from your confusion. Meanwhile, the wealthy use debt to buy assets, not liabilities. They borrow money to acquire rental properties, businesses, and investments that produce income. Then, they use the tax code legally to keep more of that income. Most people avoid debt. The rich embrace it strategically. Most people fear taxes. The rich study them and use them as a tool. This isn't about being born into wealth. It's about understanding how the rules really work and playing accordingly. If you're angry, good, you should be, because that frustration is fuel. The only question is, what are you going to do with it? Keep playing a rigged game or learn to master it. The choice finally is yours. The moment I realized the rich don't fear debt, it flipped my entire worldview. See, most people think the path to wealth is avoiding debt, paying off mortgages, and living frugally. But the wealthy view debt as leverage. They don't ask, how can I avoid debt? They ask, how can I use debt to acquire something that pays me? That's the core difference. When you use debt to buy liabilities like a car or a vacation, you end up poorer. But when you use debt to buy an asset, something that produces monthly income, you've essentially used other people's money to grow your wealth. Let me break this down with clarity. Say you take out a loan to buy a rental property. That property rents for $2,000 a month, and after expenses and the loan payment, you keep $500 monthly. You didn't use your own cash to buy the asset. The debt enabled the purchase, and the income covers the debt while leaving you profit. Now multiply that across several properties. That's how wealth scales. It's not about saving pennies, it's about moving capital, even if that capital is borrowed, into income-producing vehicles. And here's the part most miss. The IRS rewards this. Interest on business debt is tax-deductible. Depreciation on assets reduces taxable income. Income from real estate structured right can be taxed at far lower rates than earned income. So not only do the rich use debt to make money, they use the tax system to keep more of it. Most people work for money. The rich make money work for them through debt. But it all starts with a shift in thinking. If you continue viewing all debt as dangerous, you'll avoid the very tool that builds empires. The difference between bad debt and good debt isn't just interest rates. It's whether the debt generates income or drains your wallet. Once you understand that, you stop fearing debt. You start controlling it. And more importantly, you use it to build a life that's free from financial survival mode. This isn't theory. This is how the rich play the game. If you want in, you need to rewire the way you look at money. Understanding the difference between an asset and a liability is where most people go wrong. It's not about what something is, it's about what it does. Traditional education defines an asset as something you own, but that's incomplete. A true asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. That's the rule. It doesn't matter if it's a house, a car, or a business. If it's costing you money every month, it's a liability. If it's paying you, it's an asset. It's that simple. The house you live in, for example, is not an asset. It's a liability. Why? Because you're paying the mortgage, taxes, maintenance. It's taking money out. But if you buy a property and someone else pays rent, covering all expenses and leaving profit, it's an asset. Yet most people have been conditioned to believe your home is your biggest asset. That's not financial truth. That's marketing from banks. They want you in debt. And they want you thinking that debt is safe because it's tied to property. The real shift happens when you stop asking, do I own it? And start asking, does it pay me? Because at the end of the month, if you've got more money coming in than going out, you're building wealth. If not, you're bleeding. This is why the rich focus obsessively on cash flow. Assets that produce consistent, predictable income are the foundation of their wealth, not just appreciation, not just value on paper, actual, liquid cash. That's why businesses and rental properties are favored. They create streams of income, not just one-time wins. And when you stack enough of those cash-flowing assets, something magical happens. You become financially independent. Your time is no longer tied to your income. You work because you choose to, not because you have to. And that's freedom. Financial education starts with cash flow, not net worth. It starts with asking, how much income do my assets produce? How much are my liabilities costing me? Until you see money in terms of flow, not static value, you'll be stuck measuring success by the wrong metrics. But once you do, you'll never look at your finances the same way again. Not all income is created equal. In fact, the type of income you earn can determine how fast you build wealth or how fast you lose it to taxes. There are three primary types of income: earned income, portfolio income, and passive income. Most people only know the first, earned income. That's your salary, your hourly wage, the money you trade time for. It's also the highest taxed. You work, you get paid, and a big chunk goes to the government before you even see it. That's the game employees play. Then there's portfolio income, gains from investments like stocks, bonds, and capital assets. You buy low, sell high, and pay capital gains tax. It can be more efficient than earned income, but it's still unpredictable. The market can crash. Timing matters, and it often requires more capital to get significant returns. But then there's passive income, income that flows in without you having to actively work for it. Think rental properties, royalties, business distributions, automated online systems. This type of income is the holy grail for the wealthy, not only because it continues even when you don't work, but also because it's often taxed at lower rates or not taxed at all with the right structures. For example, rental income can be offset with depreciation. Business income can be shielded with legal deductions. Trusts, LLCs, and tax strategies allow the rich to keep what they earn. Meanwhile, the average person is stuck paying the highest rate for the hardest kind of income to maintain, earned income. And this isn't by accident. The system rewards those who invest in assets that serve others: housing, services, intellectual property. These people take on risk so they get the tax advantages. You're not punished for being rich. You're rewarded for thinking like the rich. That's the shift. If you want freedom, you need to build streams of income that don't depend on your labor. It starts small, maybe a single rental, a digital product, or a piece of content that pays over time. But the principle is the same. Leverage systems, not sweat. Focus on cash flow, not just capital. If you're only earning money when you're working, your income is limited by time. But if your money works for you, through passive vehicles, you unlock scalability. And that's the difference between surviving and thriving. The wealthy know it. Now you do too. Most people see taxes as a burden. The rich see them as a tool. That's not because they're evading taxes. It's because they understand them. The tax code isn't just a set of rules to follow. It's a map. And if you read it carefully, it tells you exactly what the government wants you to do. The government doesn't want you to just work and pay taxes. They want you to invest in what the country needs: housing, jobs, innovation, energy, agriculture. And when you do those things, you get rewarded with legal tax breaks. That's why real estate investors get depreciation deductions. That's why business owners write off expenses. That's why capital gains are taxed less than earned income. The tax code is not rigged in favor of the rich. It's open to anyone who knows how to use it. But the truth is, most people never learn. They fill out a W-2, pay what they're told, and hope for a refund. Meanwhile, the wealthy work with tax strategists, build LLCs and S-corps, and reinvest their income in ways that reduce or defer taxation. They don't just accept tax as a fixed expense, they engineer their finances around minimizing it. It's legal, it's transparent, and it's powerful. Let's break this down. Say you make $100,000 at a job. You get taxed on that entire amount. Now say you run a business and make the same $100,000. But before taxes, you deduct business travel, equipment, services, office expenses. Maybe you reduce your taxable income to $50,000. That's a massive difference in tax owed, and it's 100% legal. Or take real estate. You buy a property, and even if it makes you money monthly, you get to depreciate it on paper. That reduces your taxable income even further, sometimes to zero. That's how the wealthy earn millions and pay less tax than someone making $60 a year. It's not because they're cheating, it's because they're educated. Tax isn't just a cost, it's a signal. It tells you where to invest, how to structure deals, and how to build long-term wealth. The moment you stop fearing taxes and start studying them, you gain control over one of the biggest expenses in your life. That's not just a hack, that's strategy. And strategy is how you win. The most dangerous phrase in the English language isn't "I don't know," it's "I can't." Every time you say "I can't afford that," "I can't do that," or "I can't learn that," you close the door on opportunity. You shut down your brain's problem-solving mode and flip on a survival instinct that says, stay where you are. And that's exactly what keeps most people poor. Poverty is not just a lack of money, it's a lack of options. And options come from thinking creatively, from believing that there's always a way. Most people were programmed from a young age to fear money, to think wealth is for others, or worse, that money is evil. They were told to be realistic, play it safe, don't ask too many questions. And so, they grew up obedient, but financially illiterate. They follow rules written by people who profit from their ignorance. The school system says, work hard and save, but never explains inflation or taxes. Parents say, get a secure job, but never show you how to create income. Culture says, wealth is greedy, but forgets that generosity comes from abundance. So when someone sees an opportunity, a course, an investment, a mentor, they say, I can't afford it. Not because they literally can't, but because they've never been taught to ask a better question. How can I afford it? That shift, one simple question, turns a limitation into a challenge. It forces you to think differently, to find ways, to be resourceful. That's how entrepreneurs are born. That's how wealth begins. Because money flows to those who solve problems, not those who avoid them. If you grew up poor or middle class, this may feel foreign. You were probably taught that being frugal is virtuous, that taking risks is reckless, and that debt is evil. But the truth is, the wealthiest people are the ones who embrace risk, use debt strategically, and constantly look for ways to expand, not contract their potential. They don't say, I can't. They say, what would need to be true for me to make this work? And then they act. They try. They fail. They adjust. But they keep moving. Because forward momentum is the opposite of being stuck. So if you want to escape financial survival mode, start by killing that phrase, I can't. Replace it with, how can I? That's how everything begins. Here's one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal finance. The rich don't work for money. And that's not some fluffy metaphor. It's a literal strategy. Most people work for a paycheck. They trade hours for dollars. Their income stops the moment they stop showing up. That's labor-based income, and it's a trap if it's your only source. The wealthy don't play that game. They work for assets. They work to build systems. They invest time and energy into creating machines that print money while they sleep. The key difference? They understand money is a tool, not a goal. When you work for money, you're stuck in a cycle. You earn, you spend, you repeat. There's never enough left to truly invest. But when you shift focus to building or buying cash-flowing assets, you flip the equation. Instead of earning and spending, you acquire and grow. That's why business owners, real estate investors, and creators don't focus on salary. They focus on cash flow and scalability. Take McDonald's, for example. Most people think they're in the fast food business. But that's only half true. They're really in the real estate business. They own the land their franchises sit on. The burgers just cover the rent. That's how they generate predictable asset-based income. Or look at authors and musicians who create something once and get paid for years. That's leverage. That's scalable income. And it's not about being famous or lucky. It's about owning the rights to a system that pays. Now think about your job. If you stop showing up, the money stops too. That's a fragile income stream. And fragile incomes are dangerous. One layoff, one illness, one downturn, and you're exposed. The rich protect themselves by building income that doesn't rely on them, and they use that income to buy even more assets. It becomes a flywheel. Assets create income. Income buys more assets, and the machine grows. That's how wealth compounds. It's not about working harder. It's about building smarter. If you want out of the paycheck trap, you need to stop asking, what job pays more? And start asking, what can I build or own that pays me, whether I'm there or not? Because that's the only path to time freedom. And time freedom is the real wealth. Let's be blunt. If the school system actually taught financial literacy, the entire economic structure would collapse. Why? Because it's built on people working jobs, paying taxes, taking on debt, and consuming products. That's the engine. And that engine needs financially obedient citizens, not financially independent ones. Schools don't teach you about taxes, credit, interest, or entrepreneurship, not because they forgot, but because it was never the goal. The goal is conformity. Think about it. From a young age, you're trained to follow rules, raise your hand, memorize facts, sit still, and do what you're told. That's factory-style education designed for the industrial era, built to produce workers, not thinkers. Nowhere in that model is there space for how do I build wealth, or what's the ROI of this degree? And that's by design. Because if more people understood how money really works, they'd stop playing the role of lifetime employee. They'd stop taking on bad debt, start demanding equity, and use the system instead of being used by it. That's a problem for the people who benefit from your ignorance. Banks make money when you borrow badly. Credit card companies profit when you can't pay in full. Governments rely on taxes from labor, not passive income. So why would any of those institutions push for real financial education? They wouldn't, and they don't. That's why most people don't even know what cash flow is until they hit a financial wall. That's why people believe a house is always an asset, even when it costs them money every month. That's why people take on $100,000 in student debt without a single class on debt management. The system isn't failing. It's working exactly as intended. But here's the good news. Once you see the pattern, you can choose to exit it. You can self-educate. You can read books, find mentors, watch content, and learn what school never taught you. You can start asking better questions. You can start looking at your income, expenses, and time as resources to be managed, not just endured. Because once you understand how the game works, you stop being a pawn. And the truth is, nobody's coming to save you. Not your teachers, not your employer, not the government. You have to choose to become financially literate. And when you do, everything changes. Because knowledge isn't just power, it's leverage. And leverage is how you escape the system. So now you know the game. You know the system is rigged, not to keep you out maliciously, but to keep you unaware. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Because information without implementation is just intellectual entertainment. Change starts when you decide that what you were taught isn't enough, that the old model, get a job, save money, stay out of debt, is broken for anyone who wants true freedom. The next step is not a massive leap, it's a mindset shift. Stop asking, what's safe, and start asking, what builds leverage? Stop saying, I can't afford that, and start asking, how can I afford that? Stop consuming for comfort, and start investing for cash flow. Build your knowledge the same way the wealthy build assets, consistently, strategically, and with intention. Pick up one book, study one asset class, start one side hustle, take one course on taxes or real estate or online business. Then apply it. Don't try to know everything before starting. Start, and then you'll know more than most. Embrace mistakes. Mistakes are tuition. Every successful entrepreneur you admire has a trail of failures behind them. The difference is, they didn't stop, they adjusted. Every time you say yes to a small investment in knowledge or experience, you're building momentum, and momentum compounds. Just like money, build assets before you need them. Build skills before you're desperate. Build relationships before you need help. That's what the rich do. They prepare while others wait. And don't do it alone. Find mentors, join groups, surround yourself with people who challenge your thinking and expand your standards. Because your environment will either reinforce your old programming or accelerate your new one. You don't need to be born rich to build wealth. You just need to stop thinking like someone who's broke. Wealth is not a finish line. It's a mindset. It's a daily decision to learn, to build, to take control. And the sooner you begin, the sooner you escape the trap. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect. Start now. Build something. Learn something. Challenge something. Because the truth is, no one's coming to save you. But you don't need saving. You need a strategy. And now you have one. If you're still watching, you've already done more than 90% of people who never invest in their financial education. Thank you for choosing to think differently. But don't let what you've learned today stay on the screen. Take action. Drop a comment sharing one thing you're going to do differently starting now. And if you found value in this video, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs this message, and most importantly, subscribe to Mindset for Wealth. We release powerful, real-world financial strategies every week to help you grow, think, and earn like the wealthy.